Moving on. Last but not the least, we have our last panel discussion for the day, themed as addressing cloud migration challenges and requirements for regulated and unregulated sectors. Quickly introducing the subject matter experts of Oman and GCC. The very first renowned panelist we have here with us is Mr. Maher Sulaiman Al-Maskari. He heads the IT infrastructure and support at Mwasalat, Oman. Then we have Mr. Nagendra Seetharam. He heads the network infrastructure at Garamco. We also have Mr. Sadeq Abdulrasool, Chief Digital Officer from homies.me once again, joining us in the panel. And we have our eminent panel moderator, Mr. Khalid Jalal. He is the Group ICT Manager, Garamco. And we also shortly will have Mr. Saif Salem Bamadhaf. He is the Director IT and Smart Government Services Department of Energy, Abu Dhabi Department of Transport. He will join us very soon. He's just facing some technical challenges. However, over to you, dear Khalid, for you to moderate the panel.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Confirmation. Thank you very much for that. Good afternoon and welcome to the last segment of the day. It's always say last but not the least. We'll have another segment tomorrow. I welcome you all to the Oman Hybrid Cloud and the Cybersecurity Summit 2021 once again. For everyone's benefit, my name is Khalid Jalal and I'm your panel moderator for this lovely segment. I'll be moderating this interesting segment on cloud migration challenges and requirements for the regulated and unregulated sectors. Before we start, it's my honor to say that in order to bring you the best expertise and the knowledge today, we have brought our panelists from 3 different countries, including Oman, Bahrain, and United Arab Emirates. As they say, the only constant in life is change. Talking about the change, especially in the IT infrastructure. Although it took very long time for the organizations to agree to move from the on-prem physical infrastructure to on-prem virtualization, but it was tremendous improvement and fast-tracked people move from on-prem virtualization to the cloud journey. Of course, there are a lot of factors which are involved. I'm sure it was because of the rapid growth of the cloud services and what functionalities they were providing. The launch of the data centers within the region, we have AWS, we have Azure, and so on. And of course, the global pandemic from the last 2 years has also encouraged most of the organization businesses to go and adopt the cloud as soon as possible. But no matter what we do in the cloud or on premises, there are always challenges with the technology. Its compatibility is a vulnerability in security, confidentiality, business continuity. How can I grow? How can I be better competitor in the market? Interoperability, everything is there as a challenge as we go with the technology. Today, we have our panelists from different countries, as well as from different sectors, from manufacturing, from government, from e-commerce sectors, and also from transportation from Oman. We'll be asking them their real experiences, what challenges they had gone through and what they have learned from their experiences and how we can benefit from them. I'm sure they have spent a lot of time and energy and investment to reach to the level where they are. If we learn from them, we will of course save a lot of our own energy, our time, and our investments. It's always like the panelist was talking earlier, sharing is caring. So we also share and care all about our peers in the market. So let me introduce once again, our panelist today will be Mr. Maher Sulaiman. He's the head of IT infrastructure and support from Mwasalat, Oman. I welcome you, Mr. Maher. Then we have Mr. Nagendra Seetharam, head of network infrastructure for manufacturing company Garamco from Bahrain. Welcome, Mr. Nagendra Seetharam. We have Mr. Saif. I think he's not joined yet, but he will be joining. He's from the Abu Dhabi government sector. He's a director IT and smart government services from the energy sector. And we have Mr. Muhammad Sadeq Abdulrasool, who just speaking earlier and telling us about the homies. He's the Chief Digital Director. I welcome you all. And thank you for being part of this lovely panel and sharing your experience to our audience. Before I proceed and ask a few questions to explore and get your experience across to our viewers, let me request our panelists to please limit their responses and timing to maximum 2 minutes per question, so we have enough time for other participants and our audience who may be interested to ask a couple of questions. Let's begin. We have first in the list, we have a panelist, Mr. Maher Sulaiman from Oman, Mwasalat, Oman. He's an information technology professional with over 17 years of experience in government and private sectors. His excellent management, project management skills, and he's also worked in digital transformation projects. Very experienced panelist in our team today. Mr. Maher, let me ask you about few challenges when it comes to the cloud and especially the hybrid cloud. We start something, we need to do a plan. So there's a pre-stage, the stage, and the post-stage. So what do you have gone through in your experience as a prerequisites if somebody decided to go a cloud, migrate to the cloud? What are your experiences and challenges?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today with you guys. Thank you, Khalid. Thank you, and welcome, everyone. Well, first of all, for prerequisites of moving to the cloud or migrating to the cloud, there are some kind of major points need to be checked before you're planning and designing a project of migrating to the cloud. From my experience, I'm going to call it as a cloud migration checklist. Before starting planning to migration, you need to consider one thing, which is who will be responsible of planning and completing all aspects of that migration. So do you have a person over there who will be called as migration architect position? Is there any roles over there? If not, this is the first thing you need to check. This person will be responsible for making decisions, make sure all the steps following up and online what expected from the migration. Secondly, in the list, it's going to be choose which kind of level of cloud integration you want to do. If it is shallow cloud integration, where you need to just turn over immediately to the cloud, or it's going to be like deep cloud integration where you need to rewrite your application and legacy applications and systems to meet the cloud environment. The other thing, are you going to do a single cloud, or it is multiple clouds? Because some of our experiences show that some of the application being hosted in a different cloud, the other application being hosted in another cloud. The other things, you need to have at least a KPI. What do you expect? And what is your expectation of migration to the cloud? From user experience, there are different KPIs. From application performance, there is a different KPI. And even in the infrastructure, there is a different KPI of CPA usage, disk performance, and everything. And you need to prioritize your migrations. Which come first? It's going to be complete entire application at once, or it is like they call it component by component, or it is service by service. You have to prioritize your movement. And the one of the most important checklists is you need to plan your data migration. You have to have a solid, well-planned data migration. This is very significant and impact for your migration to the cloud. And one of the things which is, let's call it the final in my list, is how do you switch over production? It is all at once, or it is little bit at a time, moving batch by batch. This is some of our checklist that we already created in our past experience of migration to the cloud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maher. Actually, you're given a huge checklist to us. Cloud architect needs to be in place. So there's a role which needs to create. That means it's going to affect our structure of the organization, how we are going to move to the cloud, and how it's going to impact our structure, what we need to be ready with, what type of level, different KPIs, very well said, prioritization, plan of data migration, and especially when you said how you come back if something doesn't work, or if you change your plan, what is the strategy to come back. And switch over is really very critical, because it's easy to say I'm going to the cloud, but when you go to the cloud, you reach to the level of the day, okay, now I'm going to switch the plug from on-prem to the cloud. What's going to happen to my existing operation for the delay which I'm going to encounter? Thank you very much, Maher. Very enlightening. But let me ask you one more thing. Since you already gone through this checklist, which you just mentioned, if someone prepared all this checklist and tick all of them and say, okay, we have done all our 6 or 7 checklists is completed. Now it comes to the time of actual migration and the post-migration. What sort of challenges you think somebody might encounter?
Well, it has two sides of it, actually. You know that the business landscape has been changed. So now we have many organizations have their own remote workers. It is recently introduced. The other things is now organization could have multiple offices, and with migration to the cloud, they're becoming huge opportunities for those business, and as well, it's introduced its own challenges, for sure. One of the most considerable challenges, it is financial cost. Why I'm saying the financial cost? Because in the long run, the cost of cloud migration seems to retain the increase of efficiency, lower admin cost, and process. But getting to there, it still feels like it is an expensive. So one of top consists of these costs is sometimes you need to rewrite your application architect to fit to the cloud environment. You need to invest in people, tools, certificates, resources, and you need to deal with the performance issues, including latencies, synchronization, and downtime as well. And the other important point, which is related to the financial cost, is the bandwidth cost, because it is not, it's need to fit your needs. And if we are considering the solution to these problems, you need to have an invested solid change management plan. This plan could help you to overcome. And the other thing is migrating to the cloud incrementally. Instead of doing it one shot, you can segment it into small pieces. That will help. The second challenge, I think all of us, we agree, people tend to resist change. This is by default. And this is like it is a human nature, actually. So what is the solution for that challenge? I think you have to proper change management, and you need to get your leader buy-in to this migration. And they need to get and understand the need of migration. The third challenges, and for now, actually, I'm talking about this period, is skill shortage. The shortage of the skills. Because the market needs and the availability of the skills, it is not equal. The market needs for those skills, it's much higher than the availability of the skills in the market right now. So one of the good solution, what I'm recommending most of the organization of is, it's called long-term plan. It's to start build cloud skills internally. Why? Because your team currently, they are fully aware and familiar with your legacy, technology, and existing process. So you just given them a proper courses for and training, special training like AWS, SaaS, IaaS, and this will help you for a long run. This is the three more common challenges that we face in our organization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maher. Actually, you have touched base a lot of technical steps which usually people tend to forget when they're actually doing the planning. But bandwidth is something which we need to be very careful. I think we should even include it in our checklist in the beginning as a pre-stage, because it will incur huge costs. People tend to go to the cloud thinking it will be a cheaper solution for them. But if they forget the bandwidth in the region where they're living in, if the bandwidth is very expensive, they need to be very, very careful. Thank you very much, Mr. Maher. Let me proceed with our next panel member. And before moving there, let me recognize the presence of Mr. Saif Salem. I welcome you, Mr. Saif. We already started. Mr. Nagendra, Seetharam, a quantifiable experience you have in IT network and infrastructure. You have a project and program management experience, change management experience. You are also an ISO 27001 certified lead auditors. You're one of the few cloud security auditor, and you're also a tech savvy individual, no doubt about it. I welcome you, Toastmaster Nagendra, in our panel meeting, being a member. So from your experience, Mr. Nagendra, what do you think could be the core integration challenges with regards to hybrid cloud which you might have faced in your organization or in general?
Thank you, Khalid, and the panelists, and of course, Bridget, for giving me this opportunity to be here. This takes me back to what is hybrid cloud strategy? Actually, in the simplest terms, it is nothing but we should know what to goes where. And this is what in our organization, when we started to think of this hybrid cloud strategy, we identified few of these workloads can go into the cloud, few have to be on premises. And in the broader terms, hybrid cloud is an environment which enables private cloud and public cloud and allow data and application to be shared with one another, right? This is what the biggest challenge that we had. We tried this in our organization, and unfortunately, we were unable to get that kind of synchronization between the two, from the one in the private cloud into the public cloud. Of course, there were a few integration challenges that we found in our environment when we were doing it. First one was our applications, which were not cloud friendly. And there was integration between the cloud. If, for example, one of the applications, when we went into the cloud, it couldn't communicate with the database server because of some integration configuration issues. And of course, security was the paramount when we were trying to do this. And this became an issue when we started to do it. But of course, this was one of the main challenges that we found, that not working with partners who are experts in design and implementing the strategy is where most of the people, when they implement this hybrid cloud, fail. So this is one thing which we identified and started to think what can be done in our future projects. Yes, of course, when we are thinking about hybrid cloud, I always personally feel that going as an infrastructure as a service should be one of the last options. Start thinking of platform as a service or software as a service, like Homies, that he gave us that option, right? This is what we feel is very much required when it comes into hype integration. And of course, you all mentioned that the internet bandwidth, we all forget that right from the beginning. We think that when you go into the cloud, of course, everything is fine. We don't have to manage a lot of things, but the internet bandwidth becomes a bottleneck. And this is what one of the challenges that we had when we went into our hybrid cloud. Back to you, Khalid.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Nagendra. You touched base on the security and the failure experiences. Definitely, these are something which people need to consider when they're planning and they move to the cloud, or even if they want to architect the cloud, as mentioned by Mr. Maher. Mr. Maher also mentioned that training is important. So, since you have gone through practical experience, Mr. Nagendra, Seetharam, what would be your suggestion coming to the training part? How organizations should train the people and keep them ready so that they take up the workload, the continuity of their operations?
Yeah, like you are mentioning, the insufficiency of resources and expertise in these cloud migrations is the biggest challenge this year. Actually, I was reading a report from RightScale, and they were mentioning that almost 75% of the respondents marked that it was a challenge, and 23% of that said that it was a serious challenge. Of course, training is absolutely necessary, and honestly, training does not mean only classroom training. It should not be that you attend a classroom training, you will never be able to get, but that practical experience and that urge from the individual that I am going to learn is what matters a lot. Though I am not a proponent of any certifications, however, doing those certifications the right way actually would help every individual to understand the technology better. For example, there are a few AWS, Azure, and other certifications which are quite intensive and helps ones to enhance their skills. But if you go through the brain dumps and start to learn, do all those things and finish off that certification just to get a job, it does not work. Training is basically, it is not a company per se, it is the individual who has to take that, put that effort to learn more. That's what I feel very much important when it comes to training for especially this technology. Back to you, Khalid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nagendra, Seetharam, for sharing the information. And the importance of the training indeed is very important. And both our panelists, they stress on the training. That means training is really important because they're talking about the training from the experience, how and what challenges will come if your people are not trained. The training is the key for any project we do, especially when we move to something which we are not familiar with, from on-prem to the cloud. Moving to our next panelist, Mr. Saif, I think he's still not with us, so I'll ask our previous speaker, Mr. Sadeq Abdulrasool, who is the Chief Digital Officer at Homies. Mr. Sadeq, how should someone select his cloud provider? You spoke about the cloud as a service, infrastructure as a service, and so on. So how someone should select the cloud service provider, and what can be some key indicators for someone to know?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Khalid, for the warm introduction. Again, I guess both our darling speakers, Mr. Maher and Mr. Nagendra, they have enriched this subject. Just to add on what Mr. Nagendra he just said right now about the training, about the growth, about the rise. According to an article that I have read weeks ago, the overall global cloud computing market size is expected as a compound annual growth rate to increase for more than 18% and by annum. The majority of this is going for hybrid cloud. So being first, as Mr. Maher said, to have the ready mindset to switch, to have the ready mindset to move, to have the ready mindset to switch. This is what makes all the differences. And here, sometimes, and I understand why Mr. Nagendra, he is saying not to go for the certifications, but understand the concept. Because if I have studied AWS, I will never thought about Azure, for example. I will not switch. This is what I'm comfortable with. So the selection of the cloud providers shall be initially based on the objectives of the project itself. It's not based on an article or what Sadeq is saying, and so it's based on the objectives and expectations. Many key considerations can be taken, such as the implementation phases, the process, the timeline, the complexity, the flexibility, the security, the cost, the scalability, and this is a very, very important factor. Which level you can scale over the time. The availability zone. For example, here in Bahrain, we do have AWS available. So we do have an AZ available. But if you go for some certain other countries, perhaps they're either connecting for us or India or for Virginia and Ireland. So it's different. The migration, the re-platforming, the post-sale services, and this is something, it's not only for the cloud or the hybrid cloud providers, it's even for the cloud vendors. I have dealt with a company which they were a gold partner with AWS. Apparently, they told us that you need to give us the access, the account, everything. I said, okay, fine, go ahead. I have found out that they have costed me more than $700 just with the support of AWS. Reason why they weren't aware about many of the implementations. So I guess such factors will help you after all by to select the right vendors and providers. Back to you, dear.
Thank you, Mr. Sadeq. You talked about the scalability, availability, migration, post-migration, and the planning stage. You spoke about all of it. Can you tell us when it comes to the security of a cloud, what are the areas which are usually left unattended? People forget them during the planning stage, or even when they are having their systems on the cloud, they tend to forget the security element. Because sometimes they may secure their application as a front end, but they forget to secure the databases. So what could be some of those security elements someone needs to plan?
Well, see, a few years ago, I have attended a seminar in UK from one of the VPs of one of Wall Street companies. He said, you shall focus on the security if you are working with the PII data, the personal identifier information. Happily, and fortunately, nowadays, everywhere you have your personal information shared. So security as a factor in the cloud might be the easier and the harder part to handle. It's the easier and the harder at the same time. Implementers or service vendors tend usually to rely on the engineers without allocating, and this is something quite important, without allocating, as Mr. Maher said, solution architect, business analyst, or even scope translator. What do they expect? Which apparently they are leaving many of the areas, especially if you are having a decoupled network, exposed easily. In a way, that such as wrong configuration. This is one of the reasons. You're asking me what are the areas that is not left unattended, as simple as wrong configurations, an instance that it remains secure, which is the main one, the live one. However, the development one or the production one, it's still left unsecured. It's one of the big issues that I have seen in many of the setups. Bad queries within the database, etc. For me, I usually, after every project has been finished by a service provider or a cloud vendor, I do hire a pen test company or someone freelancer just to practice, and there will be a dedicated, what I call the ethical hacking. Out of them, please check it out, hack it, check it out, check it from different perspectives. So right now, whether it's like the gray hat techniques, white hat techniques, black hat techniques, after all, I want to see what are the exposures before someone else from outside environment they do. So this is regarding the security, which I believe right now it is the most important factor on any implementation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sadeq. Now, I have a question received. Now, I'll ask anyone who would like to answer it. The question is, why it is important to have a cloud-first policy before we go to the cloud? Since this is in Oman, may I request Mr. Maher to take up this question?
Well, it is the similar of what I have answered in the beginning. That's what do you expect? Who will gonna be running the show for you? Who will be responsible of taking the decisions? Vice versa, what would you expect from the other end, your users, the people who are using your database, using your applications? Having a policy in middle, having a policy in certain projects, it will simplify for you the process. It will simplify for your end user as well, an employee, of what they should do and how they can help you in securing your system. As what Mr. Sadeq said about the security over here, I have gone through a report recently done by McAfee, and it shows that lack of cybersecurity, it could slow and a cloud migration up to 40%. This is an official report, is available by McAfee. You can go and check it. So having a policy in place, it's good, simplify and taking you to the directly of what you are planning to have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maher. In the interest of the time, since we already reached 4 o'clock, now let me ask all of my panelists today in this meeting to share one takeaway message for our audience. So let me start once again with you, Mr. Maher. One takeaway message from you to our audience.
Cloud computing is the new trend, and it is a new era. We have to be prepared for it. You have to be.
Please go ahead, continue.
Sorry?
You say it's a new era. We need to be ready. We need to be prepared for it.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And takeaway from Mr. Nagendra Seetharam for our audience.
The key takeaway that I can share for whoever is planning migration to cloud are the cloud first policy, use platform or software as a service rather than infrastructure as a service, keep security at the forefront and ensure that the configurations are performed appropriately.
Thank you very much. Cloud first policy, software as a service, platform as a service. Mr. Sadeq, your takeaway message for our audience?
Yes, digital transformation in general, whether you are going with cloud computing, hybrid, cybersecurity, everything, it does start with the mindset. If you need to shift your mindset towards being digital, later on you will find all the technologies, tools, softwares, providers, etc. is available and ready for you.
Thank you very much. So the key takeaway from is the digital transformation. So everyone should take care of that one. So we have, ladies and gentlemen, with this, we have come to the end of our segment. We already reached 4 o'clock. I hope you all have enjoyed the segment and benefited from the experience from our experienced panel members. Thank you for the time, and a special thanks to our panelists who took the time and shared the experience with us. The years of experience, they just squeezed it to 30 minutes and gave it to us. Thank you very much for that. With this, I would like to sign off as your moderator for this segment. Keep maintaining social distancing and stay safe. God bless you all. And back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Khalid, for wonderfully moderating the panel discussion. We truly appreciate your efforts. Thank you again, Maher. Thank you again, Nagendra. Saif, unfortunately, couldn't join us because of some technical glitches. Thank you, Sadeq. And lastly, I would like to thank each and every participant, speakers, chief guests, whoever contributed to make this session a wonderful summit. What a wonderful and power-packed day one it has turned out to be. Starting off with our eminent chief guest of the event, Dr. Saud Humed Salim Al-Suhaili, DG of Policies and Governance Department and Head of the National Space from Ministry of Transport and Communication and Information Technology, Oman, giving his inaugural keynote, which was focused on Oman infrastructure, followed by some of the best keynotes and panel discussions around hybrid cloud and cybersecurity. It was indeed a pleasure to host each one of you here, and of course, our honorable chief guest as well. I'm sure we all have learned a lot from what we heard today: insights, trends, solutions, future for Oman, predictions for Oman, and at large GCC as well. Dear participants, for tomorrow's session, we have once again an exceptional lineup of some of the brightest minds from the industry, Oman industry and GCC, as top-notch speakers, and of course, representation from ITU Arab. So kindly do not miss the last day of the Oman Summit tomorrow. Starts at 2 o'clock, ends at 5 p.m., the Oman Summit. The event link will remain absolutely the same as today, and the process, of course, will remain the same. Let me quickly take this opportunity to thank our partners, Manage Engine, Datamount, and VMware, who added to the summit experience. And last but not the least, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Without your continued support, we would never be able to put our insightful events like this. So thank you, dear ladies and gentlemen, our eminent speakers, panelists, and of course, delegates for joining us. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Stay safe. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.